We hear of cartels controlling oil or illegal substances, but this is not about that. This is a story of a cartel that controlled something much more mundane, light bulbs, and no one knew about it. But why did it exist? What were they trying to do? At the turn of the 20th century, the invention of the light bulb revolutionized the way people lived and worked. Thomas Edison's commercialization of the incandescent bulb in 1879 led to an era of quick technological development in terms of the light bulb. By the early 1920s, many manufacturers had entered the growing market. Every company competing to make the best bulb meant that the technology and product kept improving. By each iteration, bulbs were lasting longer and longer, simultaneously becoming more efficient. Bulbs at the time would easily last for more than 2,500 hours. This durability, while beneficial to consumers, posed a problem for manufacturers. The long life of bulbs meant that people would have to buy fewer bulbs in a year, and it turns out that less repeat purchases led to stagnating sales despite increasing demand for electrical lighting. And so, although it was a growing market and there were many developments in the technology, paradoxically, the market for lighting was in a crisis. The product being built so well essentially extinguished a lot of the potential repeat sales. The light bulb was too good. Just before Christmas in 1924, a secret meeting between international businessmen took place in Geneva. The businessmen who were there were representatives of the biggest light bulb manufacturers at that time. Some of these companies being Osram from Germany, Philips from the Netherlands, and General Electric from the US. The companies came together to fix the profit issue and organize the light bulb market. And from that, the Phoebus cartel was formed in 1925, named after Phoebus, the Greek god of light. The cartel's primary objective was to stabilize and manage the global light bulb market. The Phoebus cartel's strategy hinged on two key mechanisms: standardization and market control. The first step involved setting uniform standards for light bulbs, which dictated the materials, design, and lifespan. This standardization was allegedly to ensure quality and efficiency in bulb manufacturing, but it also served the cartel's interest by limiting the lifespan of bulbs. Cartel members were not allowed to sell bulbs that lasted longer than 1,000 hours, which was essentially planned obsolescence, a strategy that leads to designing products with a deliberately reduced lifespan. This reduction from the previous 2,500 hours was intended to increase the frequency of purchases, thereby boosting sales and profits. The second step was market control, which Phoebus accomplished by setting sales quotas for each company on the maximum amount of bulbs they can sell. For example, Philips was given an annual quota of 5.7 million bulbs, even though Philips's manufacturing plant could produce double that quantity. To enforce compliance, the cartel had a few tricks up its sleeve. One thing they did was establish a supervisory body, primarily run by Osram executives. This body monitored the production and sales of member companies, ensuring they adhered to the agreed lifespan. If a company's bulbs exceeded or fell short of the 1,000-hour limit, they faced fines. If the companies exceeded their sales quotas, they also received fines. The cartel also controlled market penetration through patent exchanges and territorial restrictions. Manufacturers outside the cartel were often dependent on patents held by cartel members, and so were pressured to join the cartel to continue production. Companies that were already part of the cartel were incentivized to stick to the sales quotas, as they also licensed patents from other cartel members, and exceeding these quotas would result in breaches of licenses and even more fines. This created a near monopoly, where the cartel members dictated the market terms, effectively stifling competition and innovation. On top of that, even though the cost for making bulbs was steadily decreasing, the cartel members decided to keep the same prices for bulbs in order to increase their profits without the consumers being any wiser. The implementation of the Phoebus cartel's plans took several years. Engineers who had previously been tasked with extending bulb lifespans were now required to reverse their efforts. Various methods were employed to achieve the desired reduction, including altering filament composition, adjusting voltage and current parameters, and changing bulb designs. Despite these manipulations, the general public remained largely unaware. The cartel's narrative of standardization and efficiency masked the reality of their scheme. Consumers, accustomed to the varying quality of bulbs before the cartel's formation, accepted the 1,000-hour lifespan as the new norm, oblivious to the fact that they were paying more for bulbs that failed sooner. Now, there are some people who say that this standardization effort led to the focus on creating bulbs with high efficiency in terms of brightness and lifespan. With filament bulbs, there is often a trade-off between the brightness of the bulb and its lifespan. The brighter a bulb glows, the less it will last. And according to this, setting a lifespan standard for the bulbs meant that customers would be able to choose and compare different bulbs without having to understand the impact that a longer lasting light bulb would have on its brightness. But in my opinion, this argument fails to ignore that if customer comfort was the primary reason for standardization, it would not make sense for there to be only one lifespan standard for bulbs. The cartel could have just as easily standardized the power consumption for a specific brightness, or even allowed for multiple lengths of bulb lifespans rather than only using the 1,000-hour standard. They could have left the consumer to decide what type of light bulb suits them, instead of the cartel deciding outright that all light bulbs should last 1,000 hours, no more, no less. The Phoebus cartel's dominance continued relatively unchallenged through the late 1920s. However, by the early 1930s, cracks began to appear. The expiration of key patents held by General Electric allowed competitors to enter the market more freely, undermining the cartel's control. Additionally, the cartel's practices added legal scrutiny, particularly from the US government under the Sherman Antitrust Act. The outbreak of World War II in 1939 further disrupted the cartel's operations. The war made it impossible for members to coordinate effectively, leading to the breakup of the cartel in 1940. Although the Phoebus cartel operated for only 15 years, its impact was profound and lasting. The enforced 1,000-hour standard became entrenched in the manufacturing of incandescent bulbs, influencing consumer expectations and industry practices for decades. But the Phoebus cartel's legacy extends beyond the realm of incandescent bulbs. Their successful implementation of planned obsolescence set a precedent for other industries. The concept of designing products with a finite lifespan to drive sales became much more of a widespread practice, influencing the design of consumer goods from cars to electronics. For example, in the electronics industry, manufacturers adopted tactics such as non-replaceable batteries and software updates that rendered older devices obsolete. Today, the debate over planned obsolescence continues. Proponents argue that it drives innovation and economic growth by creating a constant demand for new products. But it's difficult to ignore that this practice exploits consumers and contributes to environmental degradation through increased waste. Efforts to combat planned obsolescence, such as the European Union's proposed right to repair legislation, aim to empower consumers and promote sustainability by mandating easier repairs and longer product lifespans. The story of the Phoebus cartel is a cautionary tale of corporate greed overshadowing technological progress and consumer welfare. By deliberately engineering light bulbs to fail, the cartel manipulated both the market and its consumers, prioritizing profits over innovation. As we navigate an increasingly consumer-driven world, the lessons of the Phoebus cartel remind us of the importance of transparency, ethical manufacturing practices, and informed consumer choices. The legacy of the Phoebus cartel, while dark, offers valuable insights into the balance between innovation and exploitation. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot and YouTube thinks you'll enjoy this video next. See you next time.